Good family day. If you don't play into the trans agenda, you're cast out as a bully and a...
Damn! With that being the current dating market, no wonder the Earth's population is dramatically declining. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Zergadowski here of WeAreChange.org, and we have a plethora of absolutely wild and crazy news to get into today, as there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of disinformation, especially when it comes to the larger financial takeover of our society. All of this as some governments, specifically the government from the United Kingdom, has just declared war on its citizenry. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, all here on this independent media broadcast. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you can get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And the clip that we played in the beginning of this TikTok was originally shared by Liberty Angel from an event on Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where people were calling for children to not have the ability to cut off their private parts. Some people didn't like that, and this is the perfect divide and conquer agenda. Almost as perfect as the race hustle, as New York City Mayor Eric Adams went on national television today and on CNN declared that 5 black officers beating and killing another black man was because of racism. Yes, you heard that correctly. Now, what happened in Memphis is a very serious situation that deserves to be taken seriously, but with more crackpots and attention, celebrity-loving, seeking politicians, along with CNN pushing a narrative that is meant to, of course, have people at odds with each other because of their color of their skin is ridiculous. This says, of course, in yesterday's YouTube video, if you haven't watched it yet, I definitely recommend you watch it. We detailed how specifically the Memphis Police Department a couple years ago implemented a diversity hire program, which allegedly these 5 officers were from, that eliminated any kind of rigorous testing or standards and just hired people because of the color of their skin. This, as people who have been accused of abusing their power, hurting other people, were hired, while more qualified candidates were not. We should be having a discussion about that. We should be having a discussion about policing, the abuse of power, the abuse of authority here, but we don't. The real discussions that could create real change are obfuscated by people trying to make this all about themselves. This from the same mayor of New York City that is now forcing all city employees in New York to go through critical race theory style training in order to help people deal with their, quote, unconscious biases. What will this training entail? What kind of propaganda, psychological warfare, backwards thinking is going to be promoted here? Well, time will only tell, but we're going to be keeping a close eye on it. This says a lot of the CRT racist theory does generalize people based on their skin color, doesn't treat individuals as unique human beings, puts them in labels, and predominantly disenfranchises people while promoting victimhood mentality to promote a larger grift that, of course, divide and conquers our society. And the more they're able to do that, the less we focus on the real problems in our society, especially the larger financial problems, as many major corporations, along with big banks, have been robbing this country blind. This as inflation is escalating, prices in the grocery stores are going up dramatically, and they're only going to go up even more, specifically the cost of eggs, which have dramatically increased. This as of yesterday, the largest egg production plant in the United States burned down to the ground. This during already a national egg shortage. And this is one of the reasons, out of many reasons, we have been telling people to prepare to get ready to live off the grid, to have their own farm animals, to have their own chickens, to have their own eggs. And if you listened to us, you would be a lot better off than a lot of other individuals right now that are paying record high grocery prices. We give a lot of this advice specifically on LukeUncensored.com, our own platform where we get to say and do what we want. We usually angle our videos towards giving you the best amount of information so you can make the best choices for yourself during these very crazy and turbulent times. And I usually don't like to pat myself on the back here, but a lot of the things that we called here have been absolutely right on the money. And if you've been a member that's paying attention, you're probably a lot better off than a lot of individuals who weren't members of LukeUncensored.com. If you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? We got a banger of a video coming your way right after this one, specifically with some very eye-opening details when it comes to a very tricky individual that is literally telling you not to eat eggs. Again, lots to uncover here. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more later on today. Sign up right now if you haven't yet. Just click the link down in the description below. It's very easy, very quick, very simple, and you get a lot when it comes to being a member here of our private, quasi-not-so-quasi private secret society. Now, in the United Kingdom, there's something happening here. Some would say it's an unraveling, as a lot of very key important details came out about what just happened within the last 3 years, as even on the British national television, there are some anchors calling for the top brass of the UK government and military to be fired immediately. This after it came out that there was a shadowy military operation that was there to spy on people who were critical of the extremely intrusive government measures that they made within the last 3 years, treating individuals that were not for locking down people, shutting down small businesses, forcing face diapers over their face, extorting and manipulating them to take rushed experimental gene therapies. And if you were a person standing up against a lot of this insanity, which has proven to be wrong, standing up for what was right, standing up for human rights, the UK government treated you like you were an enemy of the state. And now a lot of this is uncovered through this specific military operation that was just uncovered, that deserves to be talked about, because what happened in the United Kingdom is what also happened globally everywhere else in the world, specifically in the United States. Robert Kennedy Jr. even detailed how the CIA used the extraordinary events of the last 3 years as a way to specifically study and push for more centralization of power for themselves, rather than, of course, actually try to get information to help people. They collected information in order to control people. And this is the major takeaway from the last 3 years that I think a lot of individuals should have, because the government didn't prioritize people's health. They didn't prioritize what kind of supplements they should be taking, what kind of early treatment they should be doing, what kind of discourse and discussions should actually be debated, and when it comes to the right solution with the problem that everyone was facing, they didn't do any of that. What they focused on was how to enslave you more. And with the UK government, that is specifically a government that people entrusted for their own personal well-being, to use the military to spy on critics who were right all along, is absolutely a major travesty of injustice, and shows you just how close we were towards full, all-out totalitarianism, as of course being treated as an enemy of the state is not a small thing. This shows you the few steps we were away from total, absolute, Orwellian technocratic control of our entire society. Individuals like Peter Hitchens were spied on by the UK government because they didn't go full along. They didn't cheerlead the larger power grabs of the UK state. This is now the official records are here, and people in the United Kingdom are finally seeing the true despotic nature of their government that, of course, absolutely overplayed their hand here. Now, who were these individuals that were treated as enemy combatants according to the official UK government playbook here? Well, they were a lot of journalists, they were a lot of politicians, they were a lot of high-profile individuals that just had questions about the official story, the official response to the sickness, which was the right approach to have here all along here. This shadowy army unit essentially acted like the KGB, like the Gestapo, and like any other private intelligence state apparatus that abused its authority to try to hurt the discourse in their country in order to give supreme power and authority to few of those that wielded it inappropriately. This, as the dystopian nature of this project gets a lot more sinister when we learn that artificial intelligence was deployed with civil servants in order to specifically counter what they deemed disinformation and harmful narratives, which we now know were actually the accurate narratives and the right approach to take here, as of course the data from Sweden compared to the United Kingdom is very eye-opening, especially when you look at the statistics of the people who have been affected the most by the biggest governments that were doing the most. Data was compiled and then given to the government in order to organize a response to the criticism that they were facing from these politicians and journalists. This as we are moving far away from just the UK government spying on you and watching every little thing you do, but gathering that data, weaponizing it for the personal benefit of the state that would counter narratives in real time in order to push their propaganda and viewpoint on the world. With one whistleblower coming out from this specific secretive group and saying, quote, "I developed the impression the government were more interested in protecting the success of their policies than uncovering any potential foreign interference, and I regret that I was a part of it. Frankly, the work I was doing should never have happened." Now, another aspect to really understand here is that what happened in the United Kingdom, what was just uncovered, is a small point of view perspective to what really happens behind the scenes, and how essentially a lot of this has not just happened in the United Kingdom, but all throughout the Western world. This says, of course, a lot of these shadowy, secretive military groups that, of course, are there seeing journalists and politicians as enemy combatants also worked one-on-one with big tech social media companies in order to censor those particular journalists and politicians that these secretive agencies didn't like. And in many instances, the shadowy intelligence agencies working, violating the rule of law, doing all these horrible things, usually got their way, and big tech social media acquiesced to a lot of the nonsense that, of course, the government demanded them to do, which was contrary to their business model, contrary to the terms of services that they had, and violated almost every single rule under the book. This as, of course, the UK government isn't only waging a war against its own citizens, but it's there to also prolong and escalate the conflict that's right now happening in Ukraine, that represents the larger proxy conflict between the East and the West. As Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who previously knowingly sabotaged peace talks in Ukraine, just came out and talked about how the president of Russia threatened him with missile strikes. This, as we've been telling you, that this conflict is going to probably last many years, potentially even a decade, maybe even further from that. This as the conflict just keeps getting more and more escalated, and when it does, so does the excuse of a national emergency that's going to be swept up to use more of a larger power grab of the state for their own personal benefit. Again, what we're seeing here during this entire conflict, in my opinion, is lunatics acting like total lunatics. People in government cannot be trusted. Their power needs to be limited. The life loss that's happening in Ukraine, that's happening all over the world, should be considered here, should be respected, should be something that should be a part of the national discourse here. And it's not. We're only getting one point of view, and that is more war, more powers, more emergencies, and I'm just sick of it. If you are to share this video with your friends and family members, it is more imperative than ever. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org. One more video coming your way on lukeuncensored.com. See you there.